Inflation is something that impacts nearly everyone, but its true effects are often misunderstood. We hear about inflation in the news, in political debates, and from economists. But how does it actually affect the U.S. economy at a deeper level? In 2024, inflation is still a hot topic, with prices rising in everything from groceries to housing. But what's the real impact of this? Let's break it down. First, let's talk about how inflation directly affects the purchasing power of the average American. When inflation rises, the value of money falls, meaning consumers can buy less with the same amount. For example, if inflation is at 6%, a $100 paycheck will only have the buying power of $94 by the end of the year. This creates a major problem for everyday people. As food prices soar, gas prices rise, and housing costs continue to increase, families feel the pinch. While consumers feel the strain, businesses also face significant challenges. Companies often have to increase their prices in response to rising costs of materials, labor, and energy. This is particularly true for manufacturers who rely on raw materials. When inflation makes these materials more expensive, businesses are forced to pass the cost on to consumers. However, businesses don't just increase prices. They may also be forced to cut costs in other areas. This could mean laying off workers, reducing benefits, or cutting back on new investments. In a tight labor market, the risk of inflation causing layoffs or stagnation in job growth becomes a very real concern. But let's not forget the housing market, which is deeply affected by inflation. In 2024, the cost of buying a home continues to rise as inflation pushes up mortgage rates. When interest rates go up in an attempt to curb inflation, borrowing money becomes more expensive. This makes it harder for first-time homebuyers to get into the market and causes existing homeowners to struggle with higher mortgage payments. Then there's the issue of debt. Inflation and rising interest rates create a double-edged sword for individuals and businesses with debt. For consumers, credit card debt becomes even more expensive to carry as interest rates rise. A balance that once cost $200 a month to service may now cost more, especially as rates continue to climb. Harder to grow or even stay afloat. In the worst-case scenario, businesses may default on loans, leading to bankruptcies and job losses. Inflation also poses a serious challenge to the Federal Reserve. To control inflation, the Fed has to raise interest rates, which slows down consumer spending and business investments. While this may reduce inflation in the short term, it also comes with the risk of tipping the economy into a recession. The Fed has to walk a tightrope, controlling inflation without stifling growth. The decisions made by the central bank will have far-reaching consequences for the economy, and their actions will shape the financial landscape for years to come. But how long can this cycle continue? Is there an end in sight to rising inflation? The answer, according to some economists, depends on both domestic and global factors. On the domestic front, the U.S. government has to address its own budget deficit, which is contributing to inflationary pressures. This might involve tightening fiscal policies, such as cutting government spending or raising taxes, which could slow down the economy but help bring inflation under control. However, on the global stage, issues like supply chain disruptions, energy prices, and geopolitical tensions could continue to put pressure on prices. If these global issues persist, inflation could remain a problem for much longer. Here's where it gets interesting. While inflation certainly has negative impacts, it's not all bad news. For those with assets like real estate or stocks, inflation can actually be a good thing. As the value of money falls, the value of physical assets often rises. This is why many investors see real estate as a hedge against inflation. Now, with all this in mind, the real question is, how long can inflation continue to drive up prices before it becomes unsustainable? And will the Fed's actions to curb inflation push the economy into a recession, or will they manage to keep the balance? The truth is, no one knows for sure. Thanks for tuning in. If you found this video insightful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on inflation and its effects on the U.S. economy. See you in the next video!